everybody, I got a video here for you today. This is Geagle Research, and I will leave the link below, but I thought I'd talk a little bit more about the Sphinx, and more specifically, a discovery that was made about 200 years ago that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. I was unaware of this till I read about this a while back. But I think I will just read. It says, the ignored inscription on the left paw of the Sphinx. In 1817, Giambattista Caviglia cleaned the front of the Sphinx, something that had not been done since the fall of the Roman Empire. He found an inscription on a toe of the left paw of the Sphinx, 13 lines of text in Greek, engraved conspicuously with reference to how this is an official documentation dating from 166 AD after the reign of Marcus Aurelius to commemorate the restoration of the walls surrounding the Sphinx by the Romans. This text is exciting, and yet one does not have a chance to view it today on the Sphinx, as successive restorations, and especially the last, were covered with incredibly thick layers, often disfiguring the contours of our Sphinx, as stifling as the bandages of mummification. And I think that's true with the whole history of the Sphinx. It's been covered over the course of time. It says, written in Greek and in capital letters, I know that there are now 3 existing translations in English and one in Latin of this text. And it just goes over the gentleman who did these translations. But what does this text say that was discovered on the front paw of the Sphinx? And this is coming from about 2,000 years ago. It says, this structure is the work of the immortal gods, placed so as to dominate the soil of this land of harvest, built in the center of the cavity from which they withdrew the sand, like an island of stone in the vicinity of the pyramids, so that we can see it, not as a Sphinx defeated by Oedipus, but as a sacred servant of Leto, who guards with vigilance the sacred guide of the land of Egypt. And I just found this inscription very interesting. It says this work, or this structure, is the work of the immortal gods. And who are the immortal gods? Are these the rulers of the time of Zep-Tepi? Are these people from an Atlantis origin? That is up for speculation. It says, like an island of stone in the vicinity of the pyramids. And I find it very interesting because Robert Temple, in his book Sanctuary of Anubis, calls the giant Anubis, which was the height of the western side of the Nile River in the Giza area. It says, or he states in his book, that it was actually an island, and the Egyptians created a lake around it. And that is all up for speculation, but there seems to be verifiable evidence in the pyramid text in the Book of the Dead coming from the Egyptians. And it says, not as a Sphinx defeated by Oedipus, but as a sacred servant of Leto, who guards with vigilance. And I'm not up on my Greek mythology as well as I used to be, but I know Leto is connected with wolves or dogs. It says in this book, and I'll leave the link below, their sun god was the Lycian Apollo, born on the river Xanthus, the Yellow River, as the wolf god's son of the wolf mother, Leto. So I find the use of the Leto in the inscription very interesting. And if anybody knows more or wants to add to this, this whole inscription is up for speculation on what it means, but I think there are some very interesting statements in it. But what does the standard model of history say about the Sphinx? It says that the pharaoh Chephren built it just because his pyramid, supposedly, the causeway or the pathway led out to the Sphinx, and that is just the simple logic on how people associated with Chephren. And it says, no inscriptions confirms this lightly founded theory. And it says there are also other documents proving that the temple adjoining the Sphinx has exactly the same kind of marks of erosion that existed before the reign of Cheops. And he is, of course, associated with the Great Pyramid. And it says this, in an inscription which was preserved in the Museum of Bullock, the royal scribe of the pharaoh Cheops notes a dedication he himself had found on an earlier document. The dedication says that the sun himself presides over the gigantic structure, whose origin is lost in the midst of time. So here we have texts coming from the pharaohs of the 4th dynasty, who the standard model of history says built the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid. But these people are saying and they're talking about the Sphinx here, whose origin is lost in the midst of time. So these people about 4,500 years ago are saying that they do not even know who the original builders of the Sphinx was. And let's say the Sphinx was built, erosion says it's, much older than the standard model of history. Well, let's say that the Sphinx was built in 6000 BC, and I think that's a very conservative effort. Well, these pharaohs are looking back about, 4,500 years then to the time of 6000 BC. That's the same amount of time. We look back at their time around 2550 BC. So the true origin of the Sphinx is lost in time, and in fact, the true origin was lost to the pharaohs who the standard model of history attributes its building to. So that is a little bit of history on the Sphinx. It is much older than we think it is. The standard model of history does not take into account of what the pharaohs of the 4th dynasty are telling us about the history of the Sphinx. I hope you thought this was interesting. You have a nice day.